Welcome ladies and gentlemen, I'm SocioPsycho and this is Mob Reviews, and today we are going to look at Ori and the Blind Forest. This is created by Moon Studio, available for PC, and it's a Metroidvania style of platformer. How well does it actually pull off what it's intended to, and that's what we'll dive into here today. And we'll begin in the options menu. Now when we dive into the options menu, you do have a large berth of screen resolutions, which is appreciated, as you can see here. They also have sound sliders on different volume settings because that is greatly appreciated, as there is terrific music that helps propel throughout the entirety of a game and keep up the atmosphere and tension at certain times as you progress forward. Motion blur, I always turn that immediately off, and brightness and contrast. While I've not found the game to be overly dark, it's definitely nice that they do have that. Now, when it comes to performance, the game is running at 60 frames per second with no tearing, clipping, or crashing. I have not had any performance issues to that regard. They also have leaderboards, but the leaderboards are just the time it takes for somebody to get through the game rather than how much they complete of the game. As you can see, the base completion 53%, but it's the time that gets people to the top. You are looking at a lot of deaths in this game. Let's make that clear. 200 plus is or seems to be the average for even the experienced players who enjoy these styles of games. When it comes to controllers, now here's where you are pretty limited. In controllers, you do have the availability to change up a baseline of movement, Z to Q versus the W and A, SD, as you can see here. Also, you have controller, keyboard, mouse, or just keyboard. It is very limited, so if these choices do not mesh well with you as an individual, then this can be a very detrimental stopping point because the game is very heavy and difficult in what you need to do. So you'll be having a lot of repetition with the same buttons continuously and putting a lot of pressure on your digits, and so if these are not optimal, that can be problematic for you. So when we jump into this world, the first thing we're going to talk about in this world is the level design itself. The game is graphically beautiful. That is hands down. No wonder why you're interested in the game to begin with from the screenshots and perhaps trailer. The game has a very artistic feel, almost like a fantasy Japanese cherry blossom tree. That sort of elegance and beauty to it. The world is also split up into different zones, different elements and atmospheres, which really impact upon how the player traverses through these areas. You really do feel as you are in a zone or a location that is specific to that region, such as this is water based, this is lava based, this is more traps oriented, this is a dark forest of mist where I can't and have no clue where I'm going and the map doesn't work. The different atmospheres and realms tie in very well with the themes that they are going for, and the game propels forward with a very lovely scenery of the world as you traverse it. This is all in part due to the music as well. This game has a great soundtrack. That is not a fabricated tale. The music in this game keeps the tempo throughout the experience. Whether you're traversing in a very calm area, the music will help you relax. Or if stuff is getting rather intense and the urgency of a situation for your very survival is at risk, the music will keep in par in order to continue that feeling, the fluctuation, the urgency, the compulsion to continue to move, to push forward. The world seams and ties itself together to create a wonderful experience for the player, an experience that visually can be quite appealing and even relaxing at times. Now, one quick thing to talk about as well is the interface of the game. The interface of the game is quite simplistic. Down below you have your energy and your health, and in between is the level up capability. This game is Metroidvania style, where you will be traversing this world as we look at the map, and we can see in this map there is a large selection of different areas and the zones upon which I talked about. These zones and what you can see unlock as you progress and level up through the game, but there are also enemies that you need to fight as well. As you can see through the map, there is a wide definition of how large the world is. There is plenty of content for somebody who is a completionist, and you're looking at easily 10 plus hours if you're trying to get everything. If you enjoy this game, and I'll say that right now, you'll definitely get your money's worth. But the interface is very clean, very easy to understand, and very straightforward even in how you experience the world. The map is very sleek, it's very easy to identify where you are, where you have been, where you haven't been, and how to traverse, or, well, in a slight availability, into how to get where you need to go. How to traverse it is still up to you as an individual, but how or where you need to go is quite easily. The only time you'll really feel lost in this game is the section where they want you to feel lost. It is a hidden forest, a misty land. In this section you cannot use the map if you get lost. That is really about the only point upon where you feel sort of isolated from the world and everything is disorientated. But that is the entire point of that section of the game. When we jump into the abilities, now as I said, in the center of it interface you have the abilities that you have, the experience. As there are enemies in the map, you will fight these enemies as you traverse the world and gain experience doing so. When we look into the leveling up capability, it's very easy to see it's split up in between 3 different trees. You have your combat tree, which increases the damage that you do to your enemies. It's pretty straightforward. It's just an increase in DPS. The second one, map orientated and world orientated, where you get more resources from pickups. You're easier to find certain items on a map. You're able to see secret passageways. And you have a self tree, which reduces cooldowns, timers, increases how far you can jump, allows you to breathe underwater, mitigates damage that you take. So these different trees are split up into ways that you as a player may be lacking in some. Maybe you're not good at combat, and so if you increase your DPS, you can offset that as a personal note. But then again, maybe you're not great at platforming, and there's some things that you're able to increase that might give you that benefit. Now there are abilities that are not in this tree that you acquire as you progress through the game itself, and these will also increase your ability. Double jump is one of them. They don't give you double jump off the bat. You have to earn it by finding it through as you progress through the story. This is one part good because it rewards your progression and it doesn't hold your hand, and you do earn what you have, though it does sort of cut down on the exploration in the beginning and add a little bit more to the frustration that the player can experience. When we talk about frustration, we're going to talk about combat, because while the combat is not in its own right the most frustrating element to you, this tied with the save system is a boon and a negative all in one. The save system goes by the energy crystals. Now energy crystals and your ability to hold more of them increase as you progress through the game. You'll be able to store more energy, thus allowing you to open up more portals to save faster, or rifts or whatever you want to call them. But these energy orbs also allow you to do certain abilities of damage. They're not overly difficult to find as you progress forward, but the boon of it is that if you do a few upgrades into the different trees, when you open a save portal you can get some health back. But the negative is that you're not really sure where or when you're going to die, because you don't know what's up next around the corner. You might die to spikes, maybe a rogue monster will hit you. It's very easy to die in this game. Now as I said before, you're looking at a baseline of 200 plus deaths in this game. It is a frustrating game to say the least, and if you don't mind the frustration of that element, then you're going to be fine. The combat plays a small role in this element because while you're not always sure what you're going to face, the fact is the enemies respawn. Now, you may look at this as a benefit because it allows you to grind to max out as a completionist perhaps every single ability that you want, even though the cost of leveling up does get larger, so you'll need to kill more and more, thus the grind element of it. But these respawning enemies, while they can be beneficial sometimes due to how the mechanics work, and it does go hand in hand because you can sort of throw yourself off of an enemy to launch yourself into the air to get to a platform that was previously too far away from you. There are mechanics and elements that tie in to the monsters that make the respawn of the monsters sensible, but there's still this looming annoyance that because these enemies respawn, because these enemies continuously are around every corner you face, it's easier for you to die. This adds a level of frustration to the game. While your skill will always dictate how well you handle or how often you do die to these enemies, even the best player will fall to an enemy that he's already previously killed. But I have found that the combination of abilities that you acquire throughout the game, the different combat tactics that you have to face the different opponents, does go hand in hand rather well. There is a high fluidity in between what you have available, the upgrades in the tree, and what you face. Different enemies require different tactics, or at least a different approach, and it manages the combat to not over an annoyance, but more of an obstacle rather than a fight for your life for the most part. There will always be those boss battles or really difficult individual fights for the player. Which brings us into the platforming element of the game. The platforming ties in very well with the level design of the world. Now, we talked about how beautiful the world is and how everything is sewn in together well to have a sort of synergy with it, the world and traversing it, and how you handle that. In the challenges that the player will face, there is not a shortage of content. You're not really going to run around into one map and find the same spike traps and smashers and stone walls and monsters and different variations in the same area and location that you do in a second map. It splits it up, and there's really not much reusage of the exact same mechanics. There are deadlier monsters as you progress through the game, and there are deadlier traps and level design throughout the game which you need to traverse. The platforming in this element is, in one part, quite beautiful. Now, I will freely admit that I am not an expert platformer, and I did not enjoy my time in this game. I didn't. I was really angry, frustrated, to a point of yelling at the screen because of the deaths. This is not a type of game that I enjoy playing because I don't like being angry. But I can understand, I can see its difficulty, I can hear its cry for the more experienced warriors to come and challenge it. Those who will really excel at platforming, those who really like the difficult games. I can see that, and I appreciate that there is this style of game for those people. My fault is just with the fact that they don't market it in that style. They don't say or really hint that it's that difficult. They go off of this cutesy art style within the world to draw people in, but they don't have any warnings that how difficult this game truly is. Make no mistake, if you are a entry level or brand new to this game, you're not going to enjoy it. It's going to be far too frustrating to you. If you are advanced, about tier 3, you may enjoy it, but you will put up and need to put up with a lot of frustration. And if you're an expert platformer who loves challenge and seeks the warrior's path of completion and dominance, then this one is for you. Hands down, this is for you. I understand where you're coming from and what you seek in a game. And while this may not be my genre, I can respect you for being interested in this one. The platforming ties into a you must die in order to succeed. Perhaps not on your second way through if you memorize it, but in order to understand what you're facing and what you're coming up against, you have to see it. And if you see it, there's a good probability that you're going to die from the first time that you do see it. Whether it be traversing a bunch of tunnels with spikes, fighting an enemy or a horde of enemies, there's a lot of different variations in between just the controls upon how you are wall jumping. Now, I will state that in the beginning of a map, beginning of a game, the continuous wall jumping and the controls for that jumping are a bit touchy, I want to say at best, and I may not be the best platform player, but the movement system that you're required to do in order to jump and continuously hop over many of these terrains is not done in a smooth, welcoming manner. The transitional difficulty in this game, and the reason why it's more for hardcore players, is because of the spikes of difficulty it has in the game. It will go from a beginner level to advanced. It will skip tier 2 and then it will welcome you into advanced and then quickly go into hardcore. There's not really a sense of progression in a slow climb and build and reward. And with platformers, that comes down to solely level design, as it's not so easy as a change in a third-person adventure RPG hack and slash, where difficulty is about enemies and damage intake. This is all about the level design, the maps, the world. And the platforming in the game doesn't hold you through. It doesn't walk you into the next arena and say, okay, well now you have to fight this one. It's a lot harder than the last one. But you know, I trust that you know what you're doing now at this point in time, juncture of the game. This one feels more like it locks you into a maze, a labyrinth, and you need to try to find your way out, and every step further in is an increase in difficulty of its own. Now, as I said, that description may whet your appetite for this game, and you may be intrigued by it and desired for that sort of confrontation. But I found it more annoying due to my own personal skill level rather than anything else. And that's something you have to take in consideration if you are a reviewer. Where does your skill level start, and how is that in comparison to everybody else who may enjoy this game and those who don't enjoy this game, or any game for that matter? The platforming is quite frustrating, not because the design of the game is bad. The level design is almost flawless in a lot of areas. It ties well with mechanics to the level design to the monsters. They all tie in well. It is just the continuational death which takes you out of the immersion. Dying and dying and dying and dying, unless you enjoy that aspect, that challenge, the game will eke on you. It will continuously drain you of, well, what's the point of going on? What's the point of continuing? I die again and again and again. Now, typically, when a game is too challenging in any regard, there needs to be something of motivation, a reason to continue to press forward, to fight through the annoyance, whether it be curiosity in what will come next, what enemy you'll face next, what challenge will be next, or if it's the lust and wonder of what will happen in the story next. Which leads us to the story, in fact. I am disappointed, to say the least, about the story. It seems, and it draws you in with the marketing, that it has a very heart-wrenching, emotionally heavy drawn story into the game. And it starts off strong and exactly like that. In the beginning of the game, you're not really sure who you are. It becomes apparently a sort of an orphan. But you're also a guardian. And there's an inconsistency right there. You are meant to save this entire forest from being overtaken by darkness, but you're an orphan, and you're the only one who can do it to save your entire people in the forest from this evil, big, giant, dark bird. Now, this ancient tree, the leader of the grand oak style, ominous present master of a tree of trees type deal, calls out to you and beckons you back forth. Now, if you were lost for all this time period and you didn't really know your importance, and you yourself are the warrior capable of holding off an army of darkness, you think that would be kind of something of importance where you would know that. The game never really fills that in. It says you are orphaned, but never why, never how, only that you are unable to save the kingdom. Now, to make matters worse, they start off the game with a strong emotional tie with another character. You really feel a strong embodiment to this bond that you have with this creature. He's looking after you, you're looking after him. It's a symbiotic relationship. But when the evil attacks, when the world starts becoming dark and war starts happening, the tree calls out to you. But you don't know why, you don't know who you are, as we've stated. And it calls out to you alone. And you run up and you see it, and you're curious, like a dog to a whistle. You hear it, and you come running, but then you stop, and you're like, what is that? And your friend grabs you up, takes you into your home because all this darkness is happening, all this violence is happening, and you're thinking, okay, well, he's trying to save you from this darkness. He's trying to help you from this darkness. Well, then you're told that you were the only one that could save the entire world, and because you did not come, the world fell. And in truth, because your friend picked you up and put you into the cave and wouldn't let you leave to go to the tree to fight a bird that is well beyond your capability to fight, everybody died because of your friend. So instead of having this amazing, heart-wrenched story progressing through a game where you're either on a vengeance or guided like Obi-Wan style by your friend in order to right the wrongs of the world, you are a hero. You are the only one. You're the chosen one. Instead of the last of your people, the last survivor to right the wrongs, you are a chosen one put out into the middle of nowhere with no understanding and realization of your importance, knowing that there's darkness out there that's going to destroy the entire world. And then it takes the emotional complexity of the story that it had going for itself from the very beginning with your friend and says, here's the reason why everybody's dead. Here's the reason why all the trees are gone. Here's the reason why the entire world's gone. And he did it out of selfish love to try to protect you and ignorance of not knowing what's happening, but it makes him out to be the bad guy. Now you can get wrapped up into the emotional area, but when you actually look at the story itself, it's rather quite weak. Yes, it has some highs and lows of emotional elements in the beginning of the story and at the end of the story, but there is no transition throughout the entirety of the game in order for the player to actually feel as if they are having a purpose to push forward, like they're going to make a difference. They kill off the immediate emotional connection you have in the beginning, and then they blame all the bad shit that's happened onto him. And then, on top of that, on top of saving you, on top of you being a chosen one, then you die in the forest, but then you come back to life. But then the tree that saved you to give you back to life was already dead, supposedly. There's a lot of inconsistencies when you actually look at the story, and it's rather bad. Now, what does it actually have to do with a large grain of what is happening with the world? And that's because how clunky the story is, stepping on itself and not really having a transition throughout the game. You never feel that need to progress, that curiosity, that lust, that wonder, that friendship, that immersion to see what happens next. So if the platforming's too hard, if the combat's too annoying, if one aspect just irks on you, the story is not there to make up any of that difference. And this was very disappointing. I thought this game was going to be a little less intense than it was. That was a mistake on my part, expecting something that it's obviously not. But the story was the real gut shot that they just completely butchered any true immersion into it. So at the end of the day, the level design is immaculate. The world is beautiful, the music flows well with it, and the platforming, level design goes in hand. What you're going to experience is going to be challenging, but it all makes sense and it all utilizes the abilities and skills that you acquire throughout the entire game. It doesn't matter which tier of tree that you pick to upgrade your abilities, as those just increase what you're able to do as your own comfort, but it gives you the abilities as you progress through the game to experience the world, to get through the world. So the ability tree isn't a hinder, it's actually just a more delightful experience of how you want to enjoy the world. The combat falls into the same way. The main thing that the combat and the platforming have against it is the sheer amount of frustration and the amount of death that you are going to face. As I've said, 200 plus deaths is the norm that you can experience. That is most likely the minimum unless you're really good, and I'm talking about top leaderboard style. You're looking about that much of a frustration or backlash in your experience. The story, just a disappointment, a letdown. There's really not much else to say about the story. It was just really unfortunate that they dropped the ball practically right outside the gate and there's no cohesion in between you and the world. You're a cute little creature that hops around adorably, sort of like a mixture of a monkey and a cat, with the cute elements of a cat and the agility of a monkey. But when it comes to truly understanding what you are, what the world is, why this has happened, and how you're actually able to fix the world, it kind of falls apart. And it goes on a very cliche, cheesy line of, love will solve everything. Love will cure everything. And while it may be a tier here or a tier there in the ending and the beginning of a game, the entire middle is just dead space. So, did I enjoy my experience in this game? That's a very personal question, and personally, I did not enjoy my experience with this game. But that's simply because this game was too difficult for me, and that is another reason why I can understand why people will enjoy it. If you are a beginner to platformers on 4-tier level, tier 1 and 2, your best bet's probably to stay away from this game because you'll probably be very frustrated. Tier 2, perhaps get it on sale. If you fall into the advanced category of platformer, tier 3, then perhaps this will be more down your alley due to the challenge that you may seek. And for hardcore platformers, this will be right up your alley. The game doesn't have one area upon it where it is damnationally bad, but it is a strict line in the sand that says, if you do not have the skill to play this game, then you will not enjoy this game. We will kill you, you will die a lot, there will be much frustration, anger, and rage, and we will not respect your time if you do not have the skill required to be here. And so part of me says, no, I will not recommend this game. Because it doesn't respect your time, it doesn't care about your progression, it doesn't care about telling a story that enwraps the player into a world and atmosphere that just solidifies your experience, gives you something memorable about everything that you have, and you can walk away from the game thinking, you know what, that wasn't bad. A couple difficult areas, but that story and everything else just wasn't bad. But it doesn't have that. I even like how the world is a very open area where if you backtrack with new abilities and you put in the explorational time, you'll find actual beneficial improvements or items which will carry over to you becoming visibly stronger. It rewards your time in a manner of exploration, but not in a manner with the mechanics of how you actually progress through the game. If you explore, you can find stuff which is delightful and helpful, but to actually just get through the game, to fight, to do the baseline mechanics, the game doesn't really look after you in a sense of cohesion. So unless you are a hardcore platformer, I cannot recommend this game. I hope this review has been a help to you. I have been SocioPsycho, this has been Mob Reviews, and I'll see you next time.